Hi, this is Paul Spica with Spica Real Estate, and you're watching our first-time home buyer video series. And this one is a very, very exciting topic: the escrow deposit. Escrow is one of the very first things that you'll do. It's actually one of the first checks that you'll write once you've written an offer. And as I mentioned in our last video, the escrow check, a copy of it is always given with the purchase agreement. And the purpose of the escrow deposit is to evidence to the seller that we're serious. In fact, we're going to put some money on the table, if you will, as compensation for taking the home off the market while we attempt to buy it. And so, like I said, this is one of the very first checks that you'll write once the purchase agreement is written, and we'll talk later about a few of the other checks that you'll likely write. Escrow deposit, security deposit, earnest money, or EMD, all often used interchangeably. Some of them do vary a little bit, so it is sometimes important what we call this, but ultimately it's money that we effectively put on the table to evidence that we are serious about buying the home. And the purchase agreement will spell out who holds this money. It is a check that is written. It's always best to be a check rather than cash. And it can be written out to often the selling agent or the listing agent, their broker, or the buyer's agent's broker, or often we use a title company, and they will all operate under the Michigan escrow laws. And so it doesn't really matter who holds it. They will all abide by the same law. But ultimately, somebody who is a licensed escrowee has to hold it. Like we said, the purpose of the escrow deposit is to show that you're serious. If a seller receives two offers and one offer has a security deposit of $500 and the other one has a security deposit of $5,000, the $5,000 shows that they are potentially a more serious buyer. We like to use the phrase that it helps qualify and increase the quality of your offer. The escrow check will be deposited. That's always important to know. And it's held until the purchase agreement is fully satisfied, meaning that we are at closing, or if the purchase agreement is not fully satisfied, meaning that we terminated the purchase agreement for one reason or another, the escrow deposit is held until one of those two things happens. And the terms of the purchase agreement will spell out what happens in any type of situation. If the buyer defaults, if the buyer consummates the purchase agreement and closes, what happens to that money that's effectively sitting on the table. If you get to closing, the security deposit will be credited to you. So you'll see a line item on the closing statement that says here's a credit of the original security deposit. It is very important to understand on the front end what are the scenarios that you could lose that money, and what are the scenarios that you will see that money again. It's very important to know those as you navigate the transaction. Most of the time, you see that money back at closing as it's applied to the money that you might need to bring to your closing. The escrow deposit, the security deposit, is, like I said, one of the first checks that you'll write when the purchase agreement is initially written or your offer is initially written. The next check, hopefully, if we get the property, the next check is likely to be to an inspector. And in our next video, we'll talk about what to expect when you inspect. Again, this is Paul Spica with Spica Real Estate. Thanks for watching.